Now, let's do a small recap. Also, put you onto a thinking cap, okay? Because, and that differentiates this program. It is not like just giving you input. We want to ensure that you also start thinking and analyzing and questioning as to why do we do it, okay? So therefore, um, just to give you that recap, we did what did we do? Again, I will start with that equity principle of being fair and equitable. And then I said three things. So, under that equity principle, we talked about internal equity, external equity, and today we are going to talk about individual equity. So, before I talk about individual equity, we said internal equity is very important. So, when we say internal equity, what are we talking about it? Anybody just wanting to get a feel? You have also done your assignment. So when we talked about internal equity, that is organizations have to be fair and equitable. What is that we are wanting to accomplish? Always think, what is the end object? What is that I want to? What is the outcome? When I'm saying internal equity, anybody, quick.
There is parity within the organization structure
Yeah.
in terms
So
of the job.
okay, so
Okay.
ensuring that there is balance, there is fairness. How do we do it? Or what is that we do in the organization to establish internal equity?
Or by doing the job grading, job classification, and point rating method, job
Anybody?
evaluation.
Anybody?
PMS.
PMS is just to give PM performance management system. PMS is Abhijit is working in a particular role as an HR senior consultant, senior associate. He has in that role he has several tasks, and at the end of the day, there is certain performance outcome. So how do I measure his performance? How do I evaluate performance so that I can reward him? Right? But here, when we are talking about compensation, you are working in certain position. How do I pay equitably? How do I pay one job in relation to the other? So, worth of the job. So, I said, how do you actually then get to know the worth or evaluate the worth of the job? As Yogesh mentioned in the end, job evaluation. I can pay fairly, I can pay equitably only when I know what is the value or the worth of a job. Say, for example, Yogesh is working as a service provider. What is the worth of the job? Got it? So, unless and until I don't know the worth of the job, am I in a position to pay? Then I can pay any amount, no? It is like saying, okay, take 20 lakhs, take 10 lakhs. It is like, doing that. But I have no scientific criteria or a system to, unless and a scientific criteria to establish the worth of the job, then I will say, hey, product manager is higher than product associate. So I need to pay him more salary because I have done the worth of the job either through grading, ranking, point method. Is this point very clear, guys? That's the first point. Very clear. Just give me a thumbs up, please.
Yes.
Huh? Then once you have established the worth of the job, then what do we do? Just take you to that. Then where is it? Yeah. Once, so when we are doing the internal equity job evaluation, what are we actually establishing? Then we are trying to pay the base pay, guaranteed pay. After I get the worth of the job, I'm trying to say, hey, what should I pay my HR manager? What should I pay my finance associate? What should I pay my CIO? So I'm establishing how much to pay, right? So what am I doing? Only base pay through internal equity and competition through external equity. So when I am establishing these base space and evaluate, creating a design structure, it is not absolutely. I'm trying to create what I call it as what? Salary. I'm also creating a salary range, right? I'm creating a salary range where when I say salary range, a min and a max, so that when I'm recruiting a candidate for this particular job, Adil, in what position are you as of now? What is your title?
Head of Human Resources.
Head of Human Resources. So when I'm actually recruiting Adil for this position, head of human resources, then after having understood the competencies, etc., and I'm recruiting, they'll say, hey, this person, this qualification, experience, etc., in that particular grade, I will fix him at in that range. Maybe beyond minimum because he has 10 years of experience, 15 years of experience, depending on my need. Are you with me, guys? Please, huh? Are you with me? Now,
Yes.
having said that, now the say for example, there are two positions with two HR managers doing the same job. One is doing for one location, the other is doing for another location. Same title, same job. But one location has huge amount of work, scale and scope of work, volume is very large. So this person is doing, uh, exceeding number of hours over time. So therefore, then how do you then establish equity when two people are doing the same job, but one person is doing over and above whatever is required? What do you do in your organization? Will you increase the base salary? Just think about it. Because base salary is guaranteed salary. That means once you give him an appointment order, month on month you have to pay him. What will you do? Just give me quick answer in your organization. What will you do? When two people are doing, I'll give you an example. Receptionist. One is an HOD's receptionist, one is a CEO's receptionist. The HOD's receptionist has certain amount of work. Okay. But the CEO's receptionist, she has to do many other things other than just that work. She has to ensure, what is it? Be talk to the clients, talk to guests, a lot of other things as a receptionist, PA to the, what is it, CEO. So, will you pay the same salary? What is the motivation for them? So, how do we incentivize? What is that we do? Anybody? Payroll guys, all of
Ma'am, we
you
can,
should be.
ma'am, we
Variable
can
pay.
add variable incentive, more percentage like that, so that
Oh,
can be
great.
incentivized.
So we'll
Incentive.
talk about more or less, but at least you guys are right by saying we will give them a variable pay,
Yes,
right? We'll give them something additional,
yes,
additional incentive, but which may not be guaranteed month on month. You do more work, you will. So we'll assign some targets. So therefore, the question of, then having a variable pay. Okay, so let us just to build the context so that what we are planning to do today. So, what are we going to do today in session 4? We started off with building a context for compensation. In session 2, we did internal equity. In session 3, we did market pricing or salary survey, or what we call it as establishing external equity, that is competitiveness. And today what we are going to do is individual equity. And when we're talking about individual equity, it's all about paid as a variable. It could be a lump sum amount. It could be paying for performance, paying for hardships, paying for special skills which the employee has actually acquired. So everything about the variable pay. All right, guys. So when we are talking about variable pay, so I have already talked about these 3 equities. So when we talk about individual equity, that means how do we establish fairness or say for example equity. So two people again, two people, Jayesh and Kutub, same position, okay, but Kutub comes with 10 years of experience and Jayesh comes with only 2 years of experience. So how do I establish fairness there? Maybe I will give him some extra incentive there, right? Because he has got some experience. There is extra qualification with Jayesh. Maybe I'll say, hey, this is adding up to my vertical skills or horizontal skills in my organization. So I will motivate him by giving him additional incentive. Okay, we'll talk about it in more terms. So it could be skill, it could be performance, it could be hardship, as I mentioned about. Now, so when we talk about, so in this context, so we have to talk about a compensation structures. So when we have direct pay, indirect pay, and in indirect pay, which is all about cash, the base salary and the variable pay, the structures traditionally, if you look at traditionally earlier on, now again, mind you, the structure is dependent on what did I say? Tax laws, compliances. Did I say that? Okay. Just think about in India, I don't know if you all were born, earlier on, the compensation structure had many, many line items, gardener allowance, this allowance, that allowance, so many allowances. It was so difficult to compute, Why do you think you had all those allowances? Can you tell me? I gave you a lead. Anybody?
To
May
save
not
tax.
be in Abu
Tax,
Dhabi
Save
treatment,
tax.
for
isn't it?
Adil. Yeah,
For the tax treatment.
tax. But do you now think that our tax has changed? Now, fairly it has evolved. Today, like for example, 50,000. Earlier, oh, we have to add conveyance, we have to add medical, things like that. Now it is fairly evolved and it is flexible as well. So, in fact, today you have just base pay variable. This is more evolved, where mostly in USA, etc. You have this kind of a evolved structure. So your structure is dependent on the tax. Like for example, let us check with uh, Fadl. Yeah. How many elements do you have, Adil, in your compensation structure?
We have the base pay is obviously basic and the allowances.
Yes.
There are various kinds of allowances.
Yeah.
And we have discretionary bonus, performance bonus, LTIP, long-term incentive plan.
Yeah. So you'll also have, certain because maybe for the national, non-national, etc., etc. But essentially, if you talked about, you said basic, basic plus, especially you will have HRA, house rent allowance. Is it included HRA
Yes, yes. Housing is a
in your?
key component,
Yeah.
and there's a threshold. If people are earning beyond a certain value, then you need to provide housing allowance. Otherwise, you need to provide them housing.
Right. So the point I'm trying to make here is, sorry, the point I'm trying to make here is, in Dubai, because of the tax, you don't have much of those tax rules which we have. Now
No
your
income
base
taxation,
base
yes.
salary, the guaranteed salary still is divided into, broken up into basic and HRA. Now, why basic and HRA? They could have given you a lump sum as well. But just correct me if I'm wrong, that HRA, because end of contract, you have to pay the base salary for every 1 year of service, right? So, when you make it as HRA, then you are only reducing that by only calculating the basic salary. I mean, that's my understanding. Am I
True, true.
right, Adil?
So,
Huh?
well, they had a change of the employment law in 2022, and
Okay.
earlier it was mandatory to divide this into these components. You had to provide housing allowance. Now you're
Right.
no longer, you can offer it as a composite package, as you mentioned. and it's up
Ah.
to the employer. But if you put everything in basic salary, it it impacts your gratuity accumulation, which is
See, for an
8%.
employer, yeah, you're right. See, that's what the point I'm trying to make is for an employer, end of contract when you have to pay the gratuity, it is calculated on for every year of service. So you have to give him the entire amount. So if you make it lump sum, but if you actually break it into basic and HRA, probably the HRA is not getting, considered into that. So typically you break it up based on your tax impact or whatever statutory compliance is there, right? So that is the takeaway here. Okay, guys? Yeah. So let's move on. Also, please note, all of you are working in an organization. Now, the life cycle of an organization is also very, very important in the way you are deciding on your compensation structures or the amount of pay. Right in the beginning, I told you the amount of pay you want to give both for indirect pay, direct pay, depending on tax laws, etc. So, I think this is so when you are a startup, you tell me, think about it. In a startup, what does the business want to achieve in a startup? Think
So they
about
want to
it.
attract client and the resources.
Okay, okay. See, typically you don't have policies, procedures. You want to, quickly garner. There'll be more investment. So you are trying to get more, what is it, market, etc. So there you want to attract talent. At that point of time, if you will say, hey, I'll give you high variable, low base salary, it is not going to work. So typically you will see in a startups, like say for example, Google, they'll give you good salary in the beginning to attract. But after that, you look at it, they don't have many allowances, etc. Other than those, of course, everybody talks about those allowances like, yeah, your cat allowance, your dog allowance, you get good food, etc. But even otherwise, but there is a plateau. But they give good amount when they have to attract initially to attract talent. Then, as you are in the growth phase, there you are trying to standardize systems, processes, etc. So, there now you will see that the variable pay comes into form. So, they will have typically short term focus. Why do you think they will have short term focus, especially in the growth stage? Anybody think a little?
Because
RJ,
they want to
Udo,
retain the talent.
It's
in the
volatile.
talent.
It's very dynamic.
Okay. Huh?
I'm saying
Think
it's
about
very
it.
dynamic.
Think like a CEO. Think like a
It's
CEO.
evolving.
Huh?
It's evolving.
It's
Means
evolving,
we
but
are in it's
that word is very ambiguous. But think like a CEO and give me some kind of metrics in terms of in growth stage, what are you wanting to achieve as a business? High
like
revenue.
even
So revenue wants
Revenue. You
so
want to drive sales, revenue, right?
yeah. So revenue needs to be
Performance.
we
increased.
are looking
So
for break
wage
even
costs
and then
should be
stability.
Yeah,
lower.
but ultimately you want to grow, right? You want to, how do you grow? Increase markets, increase revenue. So how will you grow your revenue? By having your
Retaining the
people
people.
stretch. If your people are not going to stretch and perform, and they're only saying, I will perform average because in any case, I'm going to get my base salary, then if 80% of the typically it's 80-20 rule, so all of them perform average, then what happens to the growth factor? You tell me. So have you noticed? So people typically you are giving nice incentives, etc., especially short term, so that you are wanting to drive performance. Got it? You want to drive performance. Only when you drive performance, then you will increase the revenue. Now, when you have increased, etc., maturity, that's where you want to have your people retain for a longer term. Then you'll start looking at, mid-level and long-term incentives, etc., because you want people. Then again, when the organization's gone to a decline mode, That means they have to again start thinking. So because they have to get into a renewal stage. So again, you will have a high variable to retain people because they are the people who will actually work and then try to have some renewal strategies where you can get back to, oh, yeah, I mean, some positioning. So the business life cycle has a stage of what? Infancy, growth, maturity, decline, renewal. So your compensation strategy need not be uh, what I should say, static, or need not be the same during all the stages because the requirement is different. Maybe it is the requirement from the business aspect, from the talent aspect, it's all different. The kind of people you want to retain. So therefore, you have to have different compensation strategies. Any question here, guys? Because this is definitely all of you must be working for organizations at different businesses which are at a different life cycle. So you need to understand this. I will pause here for a second or two. Any questions here? If none, you can just tell me yes, all good, and we can carry on.
All good, ma'am.
Good to
All
go, ma'am.
good? Good to go.
Ma'am, I
Good,
have a
good.
question. Like,
Yeah.
there are two type of organizations primarily. One is the
Hmm.
private sector, the other is the public sector, and within the public sector, specifically the government organization. So, given this is a scientific explanation of how we should realistically design a compensation structure, but generally PSUs follow a static kind of a compensation, and it is similar for all the organizations, the good ones as well as the mediocre. Why is it so? Is it a pan global approach?
You asked a very good question, and this has been there. I have all good friends who are all EDs and at a very, very senior level. The thing is, the government, when they institutionalized public sector, there was a thought behind, there's a goal behind. Um, so now, if you actually notice, why do you think some of the public sectors really do not perform? Because when you say organizations perform, who it is the people who make it perform, no? Not the
Right.
machine or a machinery or something. It is the kind of people you have. Though they recruit the best people, they used to have the best people. But have you looked at their compensation systems which are linked to reward? Hmm? All what is it? Up to certain level, it is more by
Yes,
seniority.
it's
So when you are saying seniority, so what is the motivation for me to work hard and outperform? Because you are not going to give me any reward. I'm not going to get any extra incentive. I'm not going to get any extra increment. For the longest time, there were no variable pay. But I think for the last 5 years, they have also started variable pay because the government realized that all the good people leave. Let me tell you, attrition happens because the performers who are top performers, they say, hey, what is this? Yeah, they stay for some time, says nothing. There's no challenge.
right.
I'm not motivated, or I should just, even
Yeah,
over
everything
the
is some
horse
time
week.
scale.
Yeah, even the good horse becomes a gada kinds. Because it's a why should we work, right? So it's a
Right.
culture.
It's a
But
concept.
today, public sectors are also awakening because why? The ecosystem, the external environment has changed. They're also being questioned. Their CEOs are also being questioned. Yes or no? Huh?
Yes, brother.
Because everybody needs to be performing. As I said, performance is what? In figures, revenues,
Exactly.
profits, etc. Why should most of the public sector run in negatives? Huh?
Yes.
Non-profit and keep carrying on. Huh? A very good example is where my senior was the executive director there who passed away, of course, Indian Airlines, which
Right.
became Air India.
Yeah.
So therefore, I mean, I hope you know what the thing
Well,
is, right?
I got means I was just trying to have I
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
feel as to how things go.
So what I'm trying to say is, as I said, basic, we should not look, we can make things very complex. Simple organizations, performance means it's people who will perform, right? So if your people are not motivated, if only 90% of the people are not motivated, and only 10% of the people are working, but they have no incentive. Even those 10% will get merged into the other people. No? Yeah. So today we'll be talking about this variable pay plans, where it is mostly about this. So as I explained earlier, I will just take very little time just reiterating what we said, because today's focus is more on this performance incentives. Okay. Some amount, of course, we'll talk about this skills. Hardship we have already talked, and I'm sure hardship. Variable pay can be paid even for hardship. Can anybody just, let me know? We discussed in the first session, I think. Hardship. Can you give me some examples in your organization where you are paying hardship allowance? Anybody? Yeah,
In the context of our offshore deployment, when we send people in the high seas platforms,
absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely.
there
I
we
mean,
consider.
especially in the energy area. I rightly agree with you. Anyone else in any other industry?
Yeah, organization, we pay for like difficult terrains, like in Assam, some difficult terrains, we're paying hardship allowance.
Right, because there is some hardship in the difficult terrain. And
Yes, yes.
so, because for that hardship, I need to pay him some incentive, something. And when he is withdrawn from that place, then that allowance is
Given.
withdrawn. Okay.
We thought, yes.
Yeah, so you can give it. So there are several night shift allowance, crane allowance, rig allowance, offshore allowance. Okay, all these are. Now, the most important thing we'll be talking about is performance incentive and merit pay. So let us start with merit pay. These days, I think it is uh, it's the buzzword, skills, because of this talent, demand and supply of skills. Sometimes the skills getting really hotter. So, yeah, one more, this hot skill we talked about, market linked retention bonus or hot skills. What is that? I talked about it in the in the first session. Anybody who remembers?
Yeah. So
Good
if
example, I'm sure, and cognizant they do. Yeah, tell me. Huh?
if demand is high and but there is no supply, like there are some skills which are required to fulfill that demand, then definitely we provide the hot skill allowance, like
Absolutely, absolutely. Whenever uh, you are using a set of technologies or skill sets in your organization, and suddenly, when does the demand go up? When there are many more startups coming up. So, the typically startups, what do? They actually take people, poach people at 2 times the salary, because they want plug and play kind of people. What does it mean, plug and play? That means fully trained, and they can actually establish that systems and processes in your organization. So the incentive they get is 2 times the salary. But my experience as an HR head, every time my best people left, whichever organization I worked, they came back to me and said, "Ma'am, can you take us back? Because we want to come back." Because the amount of work for that salary they give is humongous. Will you agree with me? Huh? They only look at
yes.
the salary and they go. But then once they are there and they know the hardship there, they say, "Oh my God, it's not really worth, because there is no balance of life." So that's how it is. And you are absolutely right. And especially in you know technology sector, because not so much in the manufacturing organization, but in the technology sector, because it keeps changing and technologies become obsolete. Um, and also whenever new startups come, and the requirement for certain technologies become really there's a huge demand. So every year, most of the companies, through their competitive intelligence reports, they identify a list of skills and they give them these market linked retention bonuses. But as I said, the bigger companies, what do they do? What do they do? The bigger companies, large companies, say for example, TCS, Infosys, they do not indulge in market linked retention bonuses. What do they do instead? Anybody? I told you there is something called a buy and a build model for organizations. Yeah. What is a buy model? For
There is
talent.
The
operating
talent pooling.
transfers.
That's
Talent
That's what
pooling.
I'm familiar with.
So when I say build buy model, that means these are organizations, maybe small in size, that they're always buying talent from the market. So when you buy talent from the market, it is expensive, huh? And B, it's a little disadvantage for especially for leadership positions, if you're doing it often, or what happens is the culture fit. Now, in a build model, you want to grow your own talent. So large organizations typically have higher percentage of recruitment at their entry levels. But you will see that at higher levels, there is, very, very negligible percentage for higher levels or for later levels, because as they are building their own talent, they will actually throw up opportunities through IJPs, that is internal job postings. I'm sure all of you have heard of IJPs in your organization, right? If you recall, yesterday I was talking about
Yes.
a person who has actually come to the maximum of his salary. So through an IJP, I can see, hey, he has also other skill sets. So can we actually look at him in another position laterally? So there is a growth model, that is career growth, succession planning happens. Okay, so so these organizations like TCS, Infosys, large organizations do not pay market link, because there is also a conflict within the organization as to if I'm paying X technology hot skill bonus, then in IT companies, all technologies are very important and critical. So the employee who has another technology will say, hey, but my technology is also very, very critical. So I should also be getting something. So it creates a conflicting culture in the organization. So they stopped this hot skill and they said nothing. People who are on the bench, we will. So they had linked it up with the L&D, that is constant upgrading of technologies, constant training. So when they are on the bench, the disadvantage for people who are on the bench, that means at that point of time, they have finished their project. So they only get what? Base salary. They are not entitled for variable pay. So therefore, there is some kind of a demotivation, a little bit of an anxiety. Hey, when am I going to work? If you have, I'm sure Yogesh can also share some amount. So people want to, get back to projects. So that is the time when HR also takes their human capital readiness into consideration. I used a word called human capital readiness. Don't get confused with the saying that, hey, these are the number of skill sets or technologies I require for this many positions. Now I have them. So what I require, what do I have? And then constantly keep training for the future projects. So that's how they keep on rolling out different programs, maybe online, classroom, etc., so that your human capital, that is your workforce, is always what? Ready with capabilities, so that at any point of time they're not caught unawares. Okay, that's one training intervention or training strategy for large organization. Any question here, guys?
Ma'am, I have one question. Like for a means to maintain a transparency within the compensation structuring means not from the employee's point of view, but from the employee's point of view, and to do away with this or minimize this attrition and associated thought process. What do you suggest? Should we keep a, closed door compensation disclosure policy, or should it be an open one wherein we have a mix of direct pay, indirect pay, and then decide, then go forward?
So the practice the organizations follows, and also when you do a market survey, so typically what happens, I may not disclose what Nishant Mahajan is doing, list of all employees, and this is a salary. No, but a salary structure in terms of, hey, this is our salary structure. So when I say salary structure, you will give all the grades, you will give their salary ranges, then you will also give the kind of benefits and perks for every grade attached, right? What kind of variable incentives with what percentages. So there is some amount of transparency, saying that, hey, this is what is our broad salary structure, this is what you get, this
Right,
is the
ma'am.
ESOP, this is the middle term. You won't
Right.
give in detail a salary slip there, right?
No, that is not what I mean. Means I don't want to disclose every individual's net output
But
or net outflow, but
yeah,
generally,
yeah.
private organizations are presently they are adapting non-disclosure. Means even for the same level, for the same recruitment process, no one is getting
No,
to know, and there's always a that.
no, but most of the organizations through their pay policy are are putting it up. There's some amount of transparency in terms of, hey, if you were to be promoted from one grade to the other, what does it require? What kind of a thing? So broad guidelines, etc. So that there is some amount of transparency around it. There is no hush hush. Otherwise, wondering, it is like a everybody knows who is getting how much. But if you put it out there as a broad structure, it helps. Then it stops a great point to a great extent. Okay, all right. Let me start with, when we are talking about a role, we already talked about he gets a base salary. So what does he get for his performance? Then we said in general, we are saying he'll get, for his performance, he will get variable pay, which could be incentives, bonuses, stock options. Okay. So when we talk about performance, ultimately, what is it? How am I measuring? Can performance be measured at an individual level? Yes, no? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
at an individual level, can I have an incentive plan or a variable plan for his performance? Okay. So when we are having a variable pay, we can have it at an individual level. So typically a classic example is sales. So there are certain positions, certain functions like recruitment, operation, production, where you can assign targets, production target, recruitment target, sales target. So you can have an incentive plan designed around it, saying that, hey, you have an assign a target and you give an incentive plan. Can we also have at a team level? Can we have at a team level?
Yes.
Similar. So in your organizations, I'm sure you can look at whether it's a software company, you will have at a team level too. So you can also have team rewards in terms of
Yes.
performance. Now, what I'm coming to is at an organization level, typically, what are some of the variable pays you have heard of at an organization level? Can I say profit sharing?
Yes.
Right? So essentially, profit sharing is what? The entire organization at the end of the year, so the profits they have made, certain percentage is shared across all levels of employees with a certain percentage. It could be on a base pay, it could be a grade, it could be lump sum, etc., depending on the organization. Okay. Now, at a team level or at a location level, there's a very interesting concept I want to share. It's called gain sharing. If anybody is in manufacturing organization, I'm sure you have heard of it. But today, even in software organizations, they're talking about gain sharing. I want to emphasize one thing, that the incentive plans are designed to essentially what? Motivate people. Essentially what? To motivate people. Motivate. So obviously, when you're wanting to motivate, you should see what? Payout should be large, measurement should be accurate, So what is gain sharing? When I say gain sharing is also an incentive plan. What is gain sharing? Anybody? Have you heard of this word?
Yes, ma'am. You spoke about this in first class.
Yeah, that's why I was wanting to talk about it. Okay. Now, when we talk about gain sharing, why organizations are using gain sharing? Hey, let me explain to you. Gain sharing is a little different from profit sharing. Gain sharing is how much, how do I make a team or people in a location in a manufacturing produce more? You know, what you want to motivate them, right? Work more, uh, perform more. But now, if you want to increase the productivity at a manufacturing location, or if you want to ensure that the software they prepare as a team should be in time and within the quality metrics, SLIs, etc. Now, so it drives, they should also know what is that I'm going to get, what is the payout. So if I want to bring clarity in what is that actually I will get, so what should the focus be on? That means the focus should be on what? Measurement. That means how am I going to measure your performance? So if I'm going to measure the performance in a gain sharing, which I said it's more at an operational nature, month on month. So I can do one thing in a manufacturing organization. What could be the focus? Can it be on material? Can one metric be material? That means how much of material have you used? How much of reworking is there? That is what? Quality. Focus on quality. Yes or no? Quality. Then cycle time. Right? What else? Just think about it. Cost. So are you getting now? So what happens when I'm introducing an incentive like a gain sharing? What do employees get? A clear message. Hey, this is how I need to perform with respect to material, quality, cycle time, the entire team or the group, so that I can produce X amount. If I'm producing more than X amount, all that which I produce more than X amount will be shared among the team. Now, will that motivate? Because I know. So, what will I do if you are a member of this team? Hey, anybody, what will you do? Nishant, what will you do? Will you perform better?
Yes,
Huh?
ma'am. Yes,
Will
ma'am.
you be motivated? Because you know, you already know that what am I getting? Right?
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
therefore, you will drive the performance. Unlike profit sharing, where you are really not, you don't know how much you are going to get. The payout is this year I have made this much of profit, so I might get only 5%. Next year I have not made any profit, there's no profit sharing at all. But here in gain sharing, I'm assured of certain amount. I have a clarity. If I produce this much, and over and above there's a target assigned, I can then make this much. So this drives performance. So that's why it's very, very important. The way you design your incentives is very important. And in the designing of incentives, we're going to actually do that. What are the design consideration? How your measures, how the measures are very, very clarity in setting up measurement metrics, because you will realize, all of you will realize at the end of the performance appraisal every year, you will say, hey, I've done so well, but my annual increment is so less. You're disappointed, you're demotivated, and after you get your increment and bonus, I'm looking out for other jobs because, see, I mean, my performance was not evaluated correctly. Have you experienced such things in your organizations, guys? Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah. So here the focus in designing incentive plans is the performance measurement criteria. Now, when you talk about performance of incentives, can they be quarterly, annually, biannually? Yes. So we can pay quarterly, we can pay biannually, we can pay annually through cash, through shares, etc. Now, when we pay for a call center, like what will be the periodicity of payout? For a call center executive, when I'm looking at his performance, should I pay him quarterly, annually, or biannually? Tell me. Huh?
Should be monthly rather.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Why? Because month on month, his performance can be evaluated and it should be paid out. Because you are saying this incentive is to motivate him. But if I'm going to pay him at the end of 6 months, will he be motivated? He will say, hey, the moment he gets a better job, he will quit. But say so at lower levels, you have to pay month on month. At middle level, you can pay quarterly or biannually. And at a top level, you are paying annually. So for top level, why are you saying, hey, I will pay annually? What is the logic? Just tell me.
Because
think.
we need stable people at the leadership level. So annually, I think that will maybe
That
engage
is the
them.
thing. A little more objectively, can somebody think? Little more objectively.
The cost may be higher at the top level. When you say incentive, the top level, it not in the small amount. So that's the one reason we pay them annually.
Okay.
For the leadership roles, the horizon is going to be wider, and you expected to contribute to the strategy, have look into a distant future or at least a midterm future. So therefore, objectives are also expected to be of a similar nature. And
Hey,
therefore,
I'm also
delivery.
You're right, absolutely. I'm also teaching a little bit of a logic and how do you analyze so that you can't keep reading everything. Think about it. Why do I have incentives? Why am I paying extra incentives? He or she has to perform something. At a lower level, the KRI is linked to his absolute performance, which can be evaluated on a monthly basis. That's why I pay him monthly. But for the top level, can I evaluate his performance on a month basis? Because his KRIs are different, his KPIs are different,
Yeah,
which
because
can
it is
be.
tagged to the organization profit and all.
Are you getting it now?
Yeah.
So think objectively. Why should I pay a lower guy month on month? And why am I paying? Because his performance is not on a month on month basis. At the end of the year, top management, either a HR head or a business head, hey, what is the market share for a marketing manager? Or, for example, for a HR head, we are looking not at just a number of people recruited or on time, etc. You are looking at a much bigger KRA, which can be evaluated, which can show impact only at the end of the year, not at the beginning. Okay, very clear, guys? Huh? Okay. So therefore, even your incentives are likewise planned. Now we will just get to the next one. Okay. So just again reiterating the same thing which I have already taught. I've talked about at an individual level. Piece rate, you understand piece rates on a shop floor, number of units or number of hours worked. So over time, he gets some amount. So performance bonus again, sales commission. We said at an individual level, we can do it. At a team level, we talked about gain sharing team awards. Again, think of the measurement metrics or the KPIs will be what? At a team level, at a location level. Okay. Now, when we are looking at an organization level, it is more of profit sharing. So today we are also talking about what the ESOPs, employee stock option plans. Why do we also why do we give employee stock options to people? I'm sure some of you cognizant, some of you must be getting employee stock options. Why do we use this as a tool? Startups have started giving stock options. Why do startups are also giving stock options? What is this
To
entry
reward them for the
Cash starved.
resultant.
They're cash starved.
Yeah. No, they are cash crunch in the sense that They do not have cash, but they want to attract the best talent because at that point of time they are unable to pay high salaries. So they say, hey, you can be, a part of our, it's called entrepreneurship. So we're going to give you stocks. You work like a part of an owner. You actually then work harder. And when the stock share value goes up, then you can actually encash it. So in today's times, I think earlier on, maybe 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, stocks were only given to top management people. But today it's become common. Across the organization, everybody gets stocks and shares to some extent. Why? Essentially because market is tight. The ecosystem has changed. There's huge competition. Now, critical talent, even at your lower level, is also as important as your top level. So, to retain them, it's very important. So, you use what? Stocks as a deferred payment to retain. Your
Yeah.
incentive plans are for motivation, but your stock options are for retention. So any long-term incentive plans are mostly for retention. You want to retain the person. So therefore you are saying, hey, I'm going to give you a long-term retention plan or a stock option so that you are able to stay on for a longer time. Any questions, guys?
No,
I've
ma'am.
already
Ma'am, is
explained.
there any benefit? Is there any tax benefit if the employer can think of? Because I think if they are paying this ESOP, I think it will be a win-win situation for both employer and employee from the tax benefit perspective, I guess.
No tax benefit. Huh? You have to pay
Okay.
tax. Other than those tax, gift tax, etc. And I talked about one annuity scheme, you recall? We'll talk about it, where if you are on a high salary, then the organization looks at a scheme where that amount which is being deducted as tax, some amount, not all, can be saved, can be actually, invested in an annuity plan. Okay.
But yes,
So
ma'am,
even, yeah.
I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but I think in US, if somebody is giving ESOP, I think then employer and employer both will not have to pay the tax, I guess so, in US.
In US also, let me tell you, my daughter works in US, huh?
Okay.
And a huge amount of tax.
Okay.
Okay.
Ma'am, just one thing, these ESOPs are considered as perquisite. Will there be any perquisite taxation on that?
Yeah, we will do. I will talk about it an overview, but in detail, probably. Because we won't be having so much of time in detail, but it's a very
Oh,
interesting thing. Probably we
great.
can give a working paper on that. Okay, ESOP.
That would
But we'll definitely give you an overview of how does ESOP work, etc. Okay. Huh?
okay.
Yeah. Any clarification on this piece performance we have already, and let me tell you guys, you have to pay tax on all this. Okay. I don't know about, I must ask Fadil who works in Abu Dhabi. So when you all get bonuses, is any percentage of tax deductions?
No, there is no income taxation.
No income tax. But unfortunately in India, yes. Huh? When you get your performance bonus, there's a percentage of tax also, tax deduction. So unlike the Middle East. All right. Achha, no tax there. So I talked about gain sharing. I talked about team bonus rewards. I spoke about profit sharing. Profit sharing, I said at the end of the year, every organization gives a certain percentage of profit sharing depending on the profit they have made. Okay. Now comes, today we are talking about merit incentives or skill based pay. How many organizations have skill based pay in your organizations? Any of you are having skill-based pays?
Yes, we do.
Huh?
We do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Can you just give us any example of one skill which you are
Okay, so when we do, for example, welders,
well done?
when they
Okay.
when they
Uh-huh.
do, when they weld exotic materials such
Right.
as stainless steel,
Uh,
aluminum,
uh,
etc. When
uh,
they qualify for welding those materials, they are
uh-huh.
paid separate skill allowance.
Okay.
so long that they are going to weld that material. When they come back to welding carbon steel, which is then they go back to the original pay.
Okay, okay. So when we're talking about skill-based pay, this is who shared it. This is a little different. This is more like it's not a skill-based pay, but it's more for that extra effort or for that what is it? Hardship where welder it needs that fine because it needs exotic aluminum. I would put it as there. Essentially, there's a difference here. When we talk about a skill-based pay, what does it mean? That hey, I'm taking you for a fitter, okay? But now there are a set of cross skills which are required for this particular, the entire assembly unit, for the entire assembly unit. Now I'm taking you for a fitter job, but if you get trained and certified in welding, then you will get an additional incentive from the day you are certified. So what does this guy do? Volkswagen does. Most of the manufacturing organizations do that. So what does he do? He first of all gets, online, whatever training he does, he goes through, and then he will go and say, hey, I've got trained. Then what happens? The organization, they will have a training academy or certification process. They will test, appraise, evaluate, not just go and say, oh, you've done, so we'll give you an incentive. So he will go through a process where they certify and say, hey, yes, now he's certified, he's accredited, and he can get an additional incentive. Just like you guys, when in most of the organizations, say, for example, SHRM gives a certification or you are doing this certification, most of the organizations can go back and they'll say, yes, you are working in this area and this compensation certification gets useful for us. So you will get an additional incentive. Or people who are working in the banking sector, they will motivate them, say, if you do this banking exam, CAI B1, 2, you will get additional incentives. So this is called skill-based pay. What is it doing, organization? They are trying to what? Have their human capital readiness. So how do they go about when they're doing a skill-based pay? They will actually evaluate under every function, what are the jobs there, what are the competencies required, and then ensure that how many people do we have who are all competent in these skills. Then can we design these incentive plans so that more people can get trained and certified, and then they can actually be in readiness in their skills. So that is how they go about, whether it is broadening what we call horizontal skills, it can have vertical skills, you can have depth skills. So based on the need of the organization, you can have incentive plans circling around skills, but not something very different, but which are aligned and integrated with what the organization needs. And it also goes very well with, if I spoke about how the society is changing, how the blended work style is coming into play. So what happens? Needs, aspirations of youngsters, etc., are becoming different. They want to go on a sabbatical, they want to study. So this skill-based pay play a very important role by what? Making an employee employable and grading his skills and motivating him, and also creating like a retention tool for them. All clear, guys? Any questions here? Why organizations are having skill-based pays? Hey guys, don't
No,
I
ma'am.
hope you all are not skipping, huh?
No, ma'am.
I can't see anybody though, huh? Let me see. None. Everybody says I'm going to, huh? Just be on the audio, okay? So as I said, you're identifying what are the skill profiles needed for your company. Then you will say specific skills, and then you can design around it. You can design an incentive or bonus saying that, hey, if you get an internal certification or an external certification, then you will get your incentives. And these days is very, very common. Anybody who's got some 1 or 2 certificates in the past 2, 3 years and who's getting an incentive? Anybody here? As a part of the HR, huh? Have you all done? Huh? None? Nishant, Arjit, huh?
Did the certification but not getting any allowance.
Huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Huh? Yeah, I think organizations should. Huh? Adil, what are
Yes.
some of, he's an HR head. Adil, what are some of the things you are driving as a part of the skill-based program, Adil? Huh?
Well, 85% of my workforce is
Huh.
are blue collared operatives.
Okay, okay.
So majority of the effort is driven in the direction of to keeping them motivated, and the cost of labor is extremely high in India because we need to
Yes,
feed them, we need to provide, you know, dwelling for them, we need to provide transport. So, and this because we work in a project-based environment, there's a continuous churn where we are hiring and we're letting go when we don't have a match for their skill set in the next project. So extremely volatile. There's only a small percentage, a minuscule percentage, where people are required to be, required to be retained, and we have jobs for them, on a continuous basis. Otherwise, it's come and go.
Very true, very true. Yeah. So, but some amount of talent pipeline in the sense you can create, you know, upgrading so that you have, uh, I mean, you can see cross skills and upskilling where it helps you so that you can keep your wage cost low by not recruiting people from the market, but keeping a buffer where you can upgrade their skills. It becomes like a retention tool for you as well. Like,
No,
for example,
absolutely.
crane
We hire,
operators, you
yeah.
have to pay a huge amount to crane operators,
True.
but you can identify people within the organization at a lower skill level who can be trained and then or more incentivize them and become, so that's how you can do some kind of a
Absolutely. Absolutely.
upgradation rotation.
In our job families, so we hire all from Indian, engineering colleges. All our
Right.
technicians are graduate engineers.
Mm.
And then we have, a career progression, a career pathing done for them. Various interventions are given to train them, bring them up over a 5 years initial period, which we call a graduate development program.
Right.
Then at the end of that period, they become at par with, an experienced engineer. So we have pay scales designed as per that skill pays and allowances built into that process as well.
Absolutely. You brought a very valid point, which US and other countries also follow this. They say that, like, for example, in India, still it hasn't really caught on. Oh, we want an engineer. But also in other countries, because as such, there's a very shortage of, labor, etc. So they say, hey, 10th or 12th pass is also good enough. But if they are trained for a number of years, they are almost equivalent. That doesn't mean that they are going to get less paid. They will get equally paid as a graduate engineer, which you rightly said. So those number of years of experience is kind of taken into consideration, almost like a full-fledged trained employee. So they get, what is it, incentive for those number of years of service as well. Okay, great. But of course, because of the, nationality, passports, etc., so the compensation system is slightly different in Middle East, because you can't pay everybody the same salary. So the nationalities, there is some kind of a differentiation there as well, right?
Yes, I
Adil?
mean, there was this inherent bias, especially in
Yeah,
Saudi, Kuwait, and these countries. But that's evolving and changing, and it's becoming more
absolutely.
based on contribution and merit.
Absolutely.
Especially
Absolutely. I think
UAE.
it's
UAE is, I
evolving.
would say, is the most evolved of
Mm.
the rest of the Middle Eastern countries,
Yeah,
and that's changing. Even for national,
absolutely.
there used to be separate pay structures for national local employees. That's also changing, especially in the private
Mm.
sector. It's changing.
Yeah, that's what I did when I did a lot of work there. I could see that. But now I think things are changing a lot there. Yeah. So these are some of the specific skills when we talked about hard skills, or where there is supply demand, that curve, high demand and less supply, etc. Then you need to really pay a little more and take it into consideration that these are but skills. Okay. Yeah. As we spoke about, when we are talking about variable pay, you can have a short term, which is called an STI. You can say mid-term MTI. You can also call it as a long-term LTI. So typically a short-term incentive is given to motivate people because you want to see the payouts faster. A midterm is used typically for retention, midterm and long term for retention, because their payout is, to 3 to 5 years, and long term typically stock options are depending on the vested periods. So let us understand a little, because you will be working on a plan. Let us understand some of the design considerations of a variable plan. Okay. How do you introduce a variable plan? So first and the foremost is, there is some problem, so I'll use this place itself. So the first and the foremost is the first one. When you design a variable plan, it is the intent is important. When I say intent, what do I mean? Intent. Can you give me another word for this? Intent, what does it mean? When I'm designing an incentive plan, intent is important. Say I'm designing a recruitment incentive plan. So what is the purpose? What is the intent?
Basically, to motivate employee, particular employee.
No. So my intent is definitely what? That a recruiter has to what? Fill in and close more positions with the required time, within the cost and within the quality parameters. Correct? Why am I giving an incentive plan to recruiter? So that he can close number of positions. He can close within that time, and also within what? Certain quality parameters. So the purpose. Now, say for example, why am I choosing a recruiter? Because everybody understands. Say in this purpose, if I say, hey, Jayesh is a recruiter who has to close 10 software engineers within a month's time at this cost. Okay, what will he do? Jayesh quickly he will run around, look around, and because I'm going to get also over and above, for every closed position, I'll get money. So I will close a position. So what is my intent? I'll just set number of positions within time. So I've done what? Hiring. But after 3 months, 10% or 20% of the people have iterated. And after 6 months, when they're on the floor, the the business manager says they cannot be trained, they are not performing, they're only performing 30%, so they have to go on a PIP. So what has happened? What has happened? The quality. So when I'm putting up the intent, the purpose, I have to be very, very clear about, hey, the quality parameters, under what kind of, so everything has to be very clear. Purpose, many a times, purpose from the HR front, that is, I want to develop a team culture, I want to develop individual contribution. So what is the intent from the functional aspect, from the sales? Say if I'm designing a sales incentive plan, from the functional aspect, increasing of sales, or if he is selling 2-3 different kind of varieties, maybe in the product mix. So there will be certain kind of a objectives or goals from the functional perspective, and also from the HR perspective. Is it to motivate? Is it to retain? Is it to attract? So intent is important. Clearly, intent has to be stated, guys. Very, very clearly, intent has to be stated. Next, next, when we talk about, if you notice here, eligibility criteria. When we say eligibility criteria, what does it mean? And business rules of joining time, appraisal periods, etc. What is this? Eligibility criteria. When we are designing an incentive plan, as an HR person, I have to be really very clear. Eligibility criteria. What does it mean?
So
That means, yes, Yogesh.
what will be the KRAs, that he need to achieve to become eligible for these incentive?
Think. KRA is mostly performance related. Eligibility is if I'm designing an
What level?
incentive plan for software engineers grade 1 people, hey, will they be eligible just after, immediately after joining? Will they be, is there a 6 months period after that only probationary period? So all these things, not with relation to KRA. I hope
Yeah,
you
yeah, got
understood
it.
why I
Got
said not the KRA part.
got
Okay.
it. Got it.
When we talk KRA, it's all. So this is about, hey, so eligibility criteria in terms of at what level this incentive plan is for whom, no, probation or immediate. So all these things are very, very maternity leave, loss of pay. I hope you know that people who go on long leave, sick leaves, maternity, they're not eligible for, typically they're not eligible for variable pay. Why? Huh? Why a women employee who goes on maternity benefit is not eligible for variable pay? She's
There's no
only
performance.
eligible for the period worked for that duration. Why?
There's
Because
no
you could not
performance.
assess the performance.
Because she gets a guaranteed salary, but she is not entitled for variable pay because variable pay is when you work extra. So month on month, she will get her maternity salary, but that will not include the variable pay because variable pay is what? Connected, related to performance. Okay.
Very quick example, if I can chip in. Uh, the overtime payment for our workers here, when they're on leave, on any sort of leave, they're not eligible for overtime because they only get overtime when they're on leave.
Absolutely. Overtime is when you work overtime. No?
That's a variable pay, form of over.
Yeah.
Variable pay.
So is that very clear? So it's a win-win proposition. You work, you get more. You don't work, you don't get. Define the performance measure criteria. This is what is very, very important. And this is a challenge. And this is what most of the incentive plans are not looked into. Whenever you design an incentive plan, measurement criteria is important. So when you design a measurement criteria, what will you do typically? What will you look into? What will you look into?
The range is the
So
range.
measurement. So very important to look at, hey, what am I measuring? A is the measurement, is this, can it be quantified? To a great extent, I would always say, please quantify. Why should I say quantify? Because it is easy to then assess. But not everything can be measured, right? Because you also want to measure sometimes what part of it and the how part of it. What is the what part and the how part? Huh?
What is the KPI?
Huh.
And how are the behaviors of the values?
What is the target? Right? What is the target? What is it supposed to achieve? But how part is, hey, how did he go about the entire thing? For example, a sales manager has a target. Typically, a sales manager has a target. Say, for example, this organization structure is sales manager with 10 salespeople. Okay. So, sales manager is the target. So, at the end of the year, he has achieved his target. How many? 500 units. So, but he still got only 80% of the bonus. So, say, for example, Adil, he's a sales manager and he was supposed to do 500 units and he did 500 units. And but he still got only 80% of that bonus what he was supposed to get. So Adil is demotivated. Says, but I should get full because I've actually done the entire target. Tell me, why do you think I must have given 80%?
Well,
And I gave you the structure. Sales
yeah.
manager with 10 salespeople.
Well, have I conducted myself ethically? Have I within the legal framework? Have I demonstrated and displayed
Let me
in
come
various.
directly because we have less time. Guys, most of the time. So I have a role to perform. Sales manager's role, his KRAs are what is it? He has to organize, he has to plan, he has to delegate. So if a sales manager doesn't do all these things, but takes the best of salespeople, 2 or 3 people, talks to them individually, he does 50%, 2, 3 people do 50%, and he has reached the target. But he is supposed to lead and get work done or achieve the target through his salespeople. He is not supposed to be doing a sales job. He is doing a sales manager's job. So therefore, the what and the how are very, very important, as Adil said. So for every role or a position, depending on the KRA, the how is also very important. Is that very clear, guys? Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Today, people are taking into consideration the how part is all about competencies, especially the behavioral competencies. As a simple example, I gave sales manager is supposed to plan, delegate, have meetings, help them, mentor them, coach them, and get work done. Not that he himself dons the cap of a sales rep or a sales guy and starts executing the task. Okay? So I gave a very drastic example so that you understand. Now, typically, when we are doing measurement criteria, you should look at what time cycles, you should look at cost, you should look at quality. These are also very, very important. Then you should also look at input, throughput, output. So these are some of the things you should look at. Define the participation and payout amounts. Very important. You have to define what is the percentage of variable pay. For example, at a lower level, I'll say 10%, higher level 20%. So clearly mentioned, base salary this much, variable pay this much. You have to clear. And when will your payout be? Is it monthly? Is it biannually? Or is it annually? Okay. Then I am designing an incentive plan, but funding is also very important because okay for incentive plans like what is it production sales, because you are producing, it is funded. But what about certain incentives where they are not self-funded? Then you really need to offset certain amount of funding for this incentive. Like for example, I'll say, hey, everybody who comes neatly dressed, there is an incentive plan. So I need to offset some money, right? Or absenteeism, or regularity, or tenuity of services. I can have such incentive plans, but ensure that you have also offset some amount. Now define the mode, whether it is cash, whether it is stock, etc. And depending on the role, whether it's monthly. So you have to know whether it is for attraction, motivation, or retention. Then the next step is also you have to define in your document, hey, if a person has attrited, that means he has left, is he eligible? If a person has is on leave, or if a person died, is absconding, so how do you deal with them? So are they entitled? What amount is being given to them? All these things have to be very, very clear. The end, you need to evaluate your plan. Okay, guys, now you have to do, based on these things, you have to do a very interesting, you have to design an exercise now. Okay. Incentive plan. So there's a very interesting exercise, a breakout activity. You'll need a break. Yeah. I will explain this and you will do this breakout activity once you are back from your 10-minute break. Okay. Now, let me tell
Yeah.
you what it is. There is a retail store. What is it? There is a retail store here. Now, in this retail store, they are selling handsets, telephones, huh? Handsets. Now, how many people are there? There are 20 salespeople, and these salespeople are reporting to the sales manager. Now, there is also an assistant manager warehouse who takes care of what? All the what? Material, handsets, inventory. Now, one admin guy and an office boy report into him. Now, all these three people are reporting into the sales manager. Okay, so who are the people? There is a sales manager and 20 sales people reporting into him. There's an admin officer and an office boy reporting into the assistant manager warehouse. And these three people are also reporting into the sales manager. Now, there are certain issues here. What are those issues? Since sometimes it's seasonal, now there is attrition of super performing salespeople. Okay, so you need to control that. Then there's also lack of teamwork. Like for example, an office boy trying to quickly put closing the store immediately once the time is off, or there is not much of a teamwork happening, helping each other to increase the scales. Okay, now there are also issues like increasing of footfall. That means you have to increase people who will actually walk into the retail store, and the way they are interacting with customers, there is some kind of impoliteness. There is no customer orientation, no customer centricity. So these are some of the things which are actually bothering this retail store. Now, the goal of this retail is to increase their sales, now, you have to design an incentive plan. Okay. You have to design an incentive plan which will include salespeople, sales manager, warehouse guy, admin officer, office boy. But what is the objective? To increase your sales. To increase your sales. So that is what you have to do. All right, guys. So you will be put into two breakout rooms. I've already given you one Excel sheet, but I will explain to you that Excel sheet so that once you come back, I will explain that Excel sheet and then send you all to the breakout activity. All right.
Okay, ma'am.
So your goal is to design an incentive plan to increase the sales. Okay. So Vilma has sent you the both Excel sheet and also the exercise you all have to do. Now, what are you doing? You are designing an incentive plan, sales incentive plan. Okay. Uh, to what is the goal? To increase the sales. That means increase the revenue. Now, if you notice, there are certain challenges. No teamwork from the HR point of view, attrition, okay, customer centricity, such things. Now, from the function, that is a product, they have different kind of handsets. So you also have to look at, hey, can we have a product mix? Okay, how do they need to sell more numbers, etc. So I want only 4 steps of the design to be done. Step one, if you recall in the design consideration, step one is the intent. Have you seen? Step one is the intent. You will do the group work, not individual. So it's easy. In the intent, you have to have 2 columns. My purpose or goal from the functional aspect, my purpose or goal from the HR aspect. Okay, 2 aspects. My purpose or goal from the functional aspect, from the HR aspect. So typically from the functional aspect, what does it mean? That means you have to increase the sales of the product, or maybe if there is a product mix, I can do that. Okay. So customer orientation. So you can list out some of them. From the HR, teamwork, retention, motivation, engagement, such like this. So this intent has to be very, very clear. So when you are writing intent, if you have noticed, there is nothing like a KPI, that means key performance indicator, is not here. You are mentioning the goals or the objectives, intent. Now, step two, eligibility. What does it mean? In eligibility, you have to consider who are the people who are for whom you are wanting. So I said what? Sales manager, sales people, and your support staff who is the warehouse guy, office guy, all those people. Okay. Now, you- so since you are designing an incentive plan for all these people, then you have to write, hey, can I have maybe function and support staff? And there, what is the percentage you want to have as a base salary? And what is the percentage you want to have as a variable pay? You have to be very clear. You recall when we were doing compensation structuring, we said we will do a certain percentage variable pay and certain percentage as base salary. Okay. So you have to decide on what is the amount you are going to do. Next, step 3. In step 3, what is important? Here is your KPI, measurement criteria. How are you going to measure him? So you only make 3 levels. This is like the rating. At level 1, that means the least. Hey, if this guy has achieved, you can take any figure of 40%, 50%, 40% and less than 40%. But having achieved A plus B plus C plus D plus E, okay? So then level 2, if he achieves, so you are setting targets here, just like any incentive plan. So you can have descending order or ascending order, just like a rating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can have it as excellence, outstanding, etc. So I leave it to you to create that. Then only 4 steps. Payment. When will you pay? You have to write all those people and then write here, is it for motivation, attraction, or retention? MAR. Okay. When will you pay? I have not given that in detail. This is only to help you all. So, motivation, retention, or attraction, and write that. So, I typically call it as MAR. And will you pay monthly? Will you pay quarterly? And so, you have to decide on sales manager, when will you pay? Sales guy, when will you pay? And for what? Okay. Please write that. And it's simple. You have to use logic and time. Can we decide on time? Should 20 minutes be sufficient?
I'm okay.
Yeah, they are there. Yeah. So
So it's
please share.
just okay. So, ma'am, this is our first step is to create the purpose and the aim. So, ma'am, first step was to create a purpose for this entire exercise is to increase the market share from 12 to 15%, to keep the employees motivated and collaborative, enhance retention, improve customer satisfaction. So then we defined the
Good.
variable
Hmm.
incentives, wherein sales manager, sales rep, and assistant manager, and this is what we created. So for sales manager, it's 60% of base pay, and we have further broken down the 60%, 40% for 100% sales target, 10% for increase in market share, 5% of retention, and 5% for customer satisfaction for sales manager, and he will be paid quarterly.
Okay.
Sales representative, 60% of base pay. Breakup is 40% for 100% sales target, 10% for team collaboration, and 10% for customer. And these sales representatives will be paid every month.
Okay.
Assistant manager warehouse, 30% is his target, out of which 15% for inventory availability or management, 10% for production coordination to with the
Right.
factory or the places from where he is going to procure, and 5% for team collaboration, as two people are
Okay.
reporting into him, and he'll be eligible for quarterly. No,
Okay.
admin officer for warehouse, 15% is the total eligibility, wherein 5% for admin support, 5% for customer resolution, and 5% for teamwork. He'll again be paid for quarterly. The
Okay. Good.
office boy has 10% eligibility, 5% for admin and housekeeping support, and 5% for team collaboration. He'll be coordinating with the other people there. So he'll be paid on monthly basis.
Okay. Okay.
This is what.
That's it. Okay. All right. So
Yes, ma'am.
actually, yeah. Just a little review on your. I want to please have your screen.
Ma'am.
Yeah. So I'm okay with your step 1. in fact, you have compressed, huh? There's one term called salary compression. I must help you all with that. I must make you. So you have compressed step 2, step 3, step 4, and compressed it in step 2. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Now, so in the Excel I gave you, I said in step 2, I wanted you to put down the list of people eligibility, which you have done here. See, step 2, people who are eligible for this
Yes, ma'am.
incentive plan. Then once you have identified those people who are eligible, then what is the percentage? Like rightly stated, you said sales manager 60%. So, okay, you've done the job,
Yes.
but yeah, compressed. Now, in step 3, just look at it, step 3. So we said, okay, you just gave one line, compressing everything. So I said in step 3, you did put a measurement criteria, and will focus on both what output and the percentage
support.
of output, what will it be? So level 1, level 2, level 3. If you have achieved this much, if you have achieved this much and below, you will get nothing. If you have achieved this much and above, you will get X amount of percentage. If you have achieved this much and above, this much. And you have written very nicely all 3 parameters. You have looked at customer satisfaction, you have looked at retention, you have looked at things. Okay. Only thing you have now step 4, payout and what is the intent. So in step
Yes.
4, you have written, again compressed it in step 2, you
When
said,
will you
yes,
pay, ma'am?
the sales guy, the lower level jobs, they have to be paid monthly basis. Sales manager, his impact or his performance can be reviewed only at the end of maybe
Quarter.
at best 6 months, quarter, etc. So you will pay quarterly, right? So
Yes,
that
ma'am.
you have done. And then whether it is for motivation, whether it is for retention, whether it's for attraction. And of course, you could have come up with some new innovative things, like there are certain uh, um, super performers, right? You want to retain them. What is that you want to
Yes.
do, etc., etc. Okay, but in
Yes.
general, you have got the entire thing. But when you do it in an organization, even if you were to design an incentive plan for a recruiter, etc., it should not be compressed. It should be spread out clearly.
A
every
detailed
every
one.
aspect of it has to be detailed, because as an employee, when I don't get my payout, so then I will be demotivated. So we will also look at those challenges.
Yes.
So it has to be very clearly uh, explained and very clearly documented. Okay, then good job. And I think all of you
Fine.
have done it.
Okay, ma'am.
I mean, you can take a pat on. I don't have a
And
chocolate to send it
yes,
across.
team has,
It's a virtual.
yeah,
Huh?
but
Okay.
it's our
Can I,
team's efforts actually. Yeah, ma'am.
yeah. So can I have the other group put it up?
I'll
Yes,
stop
ma'am.
sharing, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you, Nishant.
Thanks to the team. Thanks, ma'am.
Thanks, Nisha.
Just do the door.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. All set. Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't make any changes here. We were aligned with this one. I think that was the requirement. So we
Fine.
kept it as is. But here in the eligibility criteria, we mentioned the the different role that we have. So what we have done for sales manager, we have kept 40% base pay and 60% incentive. For assistant manager, 30% base pay, 70% incentive. Salesperson, 20% BP base pay and 80% incentive. The reason is because salesperson will be on the field, who will do the sale and everything. So that's why we kept it like that. For admin officers, because these are the support staff, so we kept 80% base pay, 20% incentive. For office boy, because this is junior role, so we kept 90% base pay and 10% incentive. This person will be eligible after probation, these two, and these will be eligible from the day one because they are part of the sales team.
Okay. Okay. Now, can I just make an observation here? Can I?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So I want you all to also understand Sales function is more of a quantified, you can give numbers, etc. Right? And the warehouse function is like a support function, but yet you can quantify certain parameters. Like for example, you can just in time, whether based on I mean patterns of customers' needs. You can always say, hey, the product should be available, and ensuring inventory just in time, quality, etc. All said and done, but still, huh? If you look at so the support staff, when it is indirectly supporting your your ability, the performance elasticity is a little less. So if you keep 70% as variable, huh? You getting me? Assistant, if you are saying assistant manager, you are obviously referring to the warehouse guy. No?
Okay, so we are considering this as an
No,
assistant
that's
sales
one of
manager.
the. I'm just talking about not here
Yeah.
as such. I'm saying function. When you talk about functions, always the support functions like an HR or a finance or something, you need to understand, hey, is there performance elasticity in that job? So obviously, when there is no performance elasticity, no scope, I cannot have a high percentage of variable. It will demotivate. When there is no scope to perform and earn that money, then I'm only getting hassled.
Yeah.
Like, for
got it.
example, very often my people would come and say, ma'am, HR people or finance people, IT people say, why are we having this variable? Where is the scope? I said, no, little amount, because at least, that will also say that because if 100% is guaranteed, then they will not even look at stretching themselves.
Yeah.
So that is why. Then, secondly, salesperson, yeah. But let me also tell you guys, when you look at it, should not be as negligible. Typically, if you notice salespeople, it is 30-70 because they should have some minimum, some subsistence. The idea of sales guy having low basic and high variable is because his role is such that he can potential for earning is very high. Okay,
Got it.
that's one thing. Second, office boy. You also have to look at sometimes office boy, how much salary does he get? So should I put it as a lump sum money is incentive, over and above his salary, base salary, or as a part? Because if he's getting just about 1,000 rupees or whatever, the lowest level staff, then they're not even on any salary range or salary grade, then I would rather give them a lump sum amount as an incentive. Okay? Think about these things, how it will work. Because I'm coming to something when I'm ending this, that, hey, what are the disadvantages of, or why do incentive schemes fail? Okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah. Now, please.
So, ma'am,
Excellent job. Excellent job. Yeah.
actually, we
You are
consider this
taking
as an
into
assistant
consideration.
sales manager. Actually, we consider that as an assistant sales manager. So we didn't consider it from the support staff.
No
We
way. No.
consider it from
Okay,
the sales.
okay then. Done. Yeah, yeah. But this is good. You have made 3 levels of differentiation. And you said if you achieve A, B plus C plus D plus E, 75%, this much incentive, A, B plus C plus E, 90%, this, and monthly kisko de rahe ho? Good. Okay, good. This
Yes,
is
for sure.
good work. Good work. Yeah, absolutely. When will you pay? Acha, you had no time.
No, I have put in here
Okay. Oh,
Side by side.
semi-annually,
Side.
quarterly, monthly. Okay. When
for the
will you
different
pay
budget.
your put? So, motivation, retention. So, retention will be if you are doing something under annual basis, right? You have to retain some super salespeople. So, you could actually say you could come up with 1 month of incentive, after they stay for 1 year or something like that, retention plan, etc. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think overall, good job done, guys. Very good job done. Huh?
Thank you. Thank
Good.
you.
I like the step 3 part. In fact, this is what I wanted you all to do. Very good part. Yeah, just a learning for even the other group, guys. Don't feel bad. But yes, you could differentiate, and this is how you need to, because clarity emerges from that. Okay, differentiation. Okay, good job. Now, having said that, I want to again
Yes,
ignite
ma'am.
your brains by asking 2 questions. Okay,
Yes.
why do incentive plans fail?
Ma'am, the major reason, one of what we recently faced in my
Uh,
organization is the base pay was little less and more
uh,
into incentives. So that was another, because sometimes sales go haywire, so they do not
mm,
get the salaries exactly.
mm,
So
mm.
that's the one of the
Hey,
major at the ground.
absolutely. So there
That's
are
the
many
one.
reasons. So incentives. So generally incentives. Sometimes they fail because maybe it was not designed well. That yeah, it is not designed well. That the money does not motivate. Right? It does not motivate, or they feel that it is hard, very difficult to achieve. So therefore, says, hey, what's the point? It's very difficult to achieve the targets. Okay. Um, but also, s- this incentive kind of a culture, in your opinion, do you think we should have incentives for everything? What are the disadvantages of incentive schemes? Any
Without the,
disadvantages you can think of?
without the
Huh?
incentives, people
Hmm? Hmm.
people wouldn't move without the incentive. They get used to that. That becomes a given.
Can I say, I'll put it, I will add a little more of a word. Can I say entitlement?
Title,
Huh?
yeah.
You take it as an entitlement, saying that अगर incentive मिलेगा तो करेंगे नहीं तो करेंगे. Huh? Over, you won't work from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock and you will start working because your incentive is planned on number of hours, extra hours, not on the quantum of work. No? So you will show number of hours working. So say for example, in sales guy, so incentives can also, the disadvantage in sometimes is that it can also bring in dishonesty in your work. You know what happens? Salespeople, they do a lot of dishonesty. They will do some, go dump it with the distributor, show it. Huh? There are a lot of this because you want to reach your targets,
Targets.
right? Huh? Does it happen? Huh? Then sometimes what happens, the disadvantage is that just because the measurement criteria is not very good, so the people who are not able to stretch or who are not able to perform, they begin to breathe bad blood, toxicity. Huh? Oh, incentive. Since who is believing in this incentive? There's no criteria. So it also breeds some kind of a toxicity. What I meant is, that feeling of hatred for higher performers who are getting more money. Doesn't it mean so? Have you, just top of the mind, though my incentive intent may be right, but it has to also be executed rightly. Now, I want you all to open up your minds. Today, see, the concept of incentive is like this. Think of a monkey or think of a rabbit. I'm tying a carrot to the stick and saying, on the stick saying, hey, if you stretch, you will get this carrot. Otherwise, you will be penalized. Like, you are giving to the animals carrot and stick approach. That's the behavior. Saying that, hey guys, if you stretch, you're going to get this much money. Otherwise, you won't get it. That's the psychology behind trying to, and getting the human beings or the employees saying that employees will be motivated. So here, what is it fundamentally? How am I planning this entire activity? That if I throw some money, they'll be motivated, and so I can always tie that money to that, carrot to that, and say make them.
Ma'am,
It was like that. It was happening. No, just hear
this
me out.
no roles which where you expect a little bit of creativity and ingenuity from employees.
Mm,
Financial incentives actually kills the creativity. That's what I've observed. Uh,
But as an HR head, I'm giving you little thought, food for thought about it. At least I have been thinking always and working towards, as an HR head, been working with my people closely. When you do employment engagement surveys, have you noticed in today's times, as opposed to 2 decades ago, the needs and aspirations of people have changed? you throw money is no more the motivator. It is not the motivator. Yes, money is important. But today's younger generation are saying that money is the least thing. We
Yes.
want happiness. We want, as rightly stated by you, we want creativity. We want to have challenges. Why do you think you actually can't retain your super performers just by throwing money? Because they are saying, hey, money I can get even in another organization. Another organization. What is that in addition I'll give? What is that value addition? So today, the total reward concept, which is coming about, talking about creativity, what you said, talking about, developing a culture, happiness, values, all that. Money, of course. But apart from that, people are looking at these things. We are talking about so much of work-life balance, I tell you, huh? But that well-being, it has to be a culture and a value. Just by having one policy, one benefit, doesn't mean that you are having a well-being for the employees. That has to be created. And the employees must feel trusted, must feel valued. You agree? What I'm trying to say is, yes, we can have incentives. It's very good. We will have long-term, short-term, every incentive is there. But at the end of it again, please don't treat people as monkeys or animals where, throw money and you can change their behavior. Now people have evolved and their needs, aspirations are way beyond just the money. You see young people, they don't care about jobs. Why do you think there are so many entrepreneurs? Hey, at 35 and 40, I'm seeing so many people leaving their jobs and starting something on their own, or I want to pursue my dreams. Are you seeing that? It's common, right? It's common for people. And also, they don't want to get burnt out, stressed out. Everybody's talking about burnout and stress out, right? Earlier days you never had because the context was so different. Okay. Yeah. Because we can on and on, but I wanted to give you that gist of saying, yes, incentives are good, right? But don't have incentive for everything, for leave, for absenteeism, means for a carrot and stick approach for everything. Huh? But try to create a culture. And one good company is the Southwest Airlines. You must read that case in Google. You must read. They don't have any incentive schemes. They only have guaranteed salary and they work like a team. They create a team culture, collaborative culture. They have actually created a value system. So somewhere maybe, if we establish, but you can't do all that without establishing fairness in the way we pay people. If you are not being fair, inequitable, and then you will say, hey, we are creating a value, it's contradicting. You can't have one thing and not doing other thing. Okay. So you have to create a culture by establishing everything, the code of conduct, your values. So in the way you pay people, in the way you bring about transparency, all these are really very important and required. Then you can actually see your engagement service, satisfaction scores, and which correlate with productivity. No, not many times we do some kind of an evaluation. We do regularly analytics and we see employee engagement scores. Oh, satisfaction score very high. But it doesn't correlate with the productivity. What's the point? Because I was feeling very good because I went out for a team outing, this, that, etc. But why do you do engagements? Because you want to increase productivity also, no? So if it doesn't correlate with productivity results, then there's something somewhere amiss, no? So the intent is to motivate people to perform, not just spend time. Okay, guys. So let us now. Any questions before we go to something very interesting and where is that? Yeah, we will be doing this. A lot of you and senior people wanting to do compensation budgeting. Okay. How do you do compensation budgeting? Okay. See, for example, if you are the head HR or like Adil is the head HR, his CEO says, hey Adil, what is your budget, compensation budget for 2024? Okay. How will you go about? What will you do? Very important, no?
Yes.
Obviously, huh? How will you go about?
You expecting a response or?
Yeah, yeah. No, just not figure. What will
No,
you
no.
do?
Yeah. So our budgeting is derived from our top line targets. So we have to, let's say, achieve a turnover of $500 million. In order to do that, then we look at how much of that will come from projects and how many from workshops and different divisions, how we make the contribution. Then, in order to do that kind of a turnover, what manpower is required? What skill set is required? That breakdown is looked at, and then at what is the current wage rate for those skill set. We organize this, so that gives you an indicative payroll budget. We also look at the probability of awards. That we only look at high probability awards and take a percentage. Let's say we're bidding for X number of jobs. Let's say we'll have a 60% win rate in the past, so that is likely to continue. And based on that, this is the manpower that is needed. So that's the payroll budget. Then you have, on top of that, you'll have other interventions, all the benefits you need to add to derive the CTC.
Right.
Retention initiatives, engagement initiatives, all of that you built on top of that. Training, L&D, etc.
So, Adil, my question was, but still, to get a ballpark figure of budgeting for the 2024, you will take some past data, right? Somewhere, some past data to begin with the figure.
Yeah.
No? So
Yes.
typically what happens when we are, as an HR head, when we are doing a budgeting, compensation budgeting, what anybody would be doing is, hey, what was my last year's figure? Initially, that is one way of looking at it. That is going back to saying that, hey, what was my compensation pool last year? Right? That's one way of looking at it. Second way, say, for example, I'm a startup and I'm a startup or I'm a new guy. So, how will I do that? So, I can also look at something called ECR ratio. For example, I'm an IT company and I have to think, because I don't have past data, I have to think about some budget figure. Now, how to come to that arbitrary figure as well? So there's a way to look at it. I'm an IT company. I'm somewhere competing. My comparator companies are like Wipro, TCS, Infosys. So I have to look at an ECR ratio. What is ECR ratio? Employee cost. Two, it's a very important metric for HR heads and also for CEOs. Employee cost to revenue. This indicates what? My wage cost. Higher the wage cost, lower the profits for the organization. Lower the wage cost, higher the profits for the organization. Will you agree with that statement of mine? Huh? There is no.
Yes.
So, how would you do that? But if you are saying, hey, very low wage cost also, then you will get monkeys. You will not get good talent. So, how do I go about? So, I want to get at least, in comparison to comparators. So, typically, what happens, what HR people do is, if I'm an IT company, I will say, for example, Wipro. Even if I don't have data, I can go to the public, what is the secondary data, look at the annual returns, and from the profit and loss statement, I can take out the revenue, I can take out the employee cost and get a employee cost to revenue. Say, for example, their employee cost to revenue is about 20%. Okay. Wipros. Then I will look at TCS. TCS is about 22%. Then Infosys is about 18%. Do you know that they pay less because they are a build model? All right. So these are,
And these
so
numbers
you
are
take,
realistic, or these are like just made
no,
up
no,
for
I'm
the sake of
taking
discussion?
hypothetical, but typically if you want these numbers, you can just go to the annual reports and you can easily get, it's publicly available.
No,
Just
no.
go to their P&L
What I'm
statements, huh?
asking that these are broad brushstrokes, and they are relevant for India. As in 20%, 25% ballpark. Would that be?
No, 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 no. Infosys will surely, because it's an IT company, and always service-oriented companies, their wage costs will be a little higher. And definitely, I just put a figure because I thought I'll do. But if you want the real, no, they are not the real figures. These are just hypothetical figures. But to tell you the truth, Infosys will have at least about 30%, because they are a build operational excellency model. So their wage costs will be low because they can't pay more, and their model is such. And Wipro will be paying a little more. TCS is also in between. The least is actually Infosys wage cost. Okay. But here, what I've given 2022, 18 are not the real figures, because you can see IT companies will have anywhere between 30 to 45 to 50% also. In fact, Google will have maximum about 60% as well. Higher the value chain and product, so you will have to engage high quality people. So the wage cost will go up.
Ours is
Okay.
around 39%. So I was actually a little bit of a gump on these
You're
numbers.
29%. You will have to compare it with others also. It's a very good thing to compare and see, hey, if I'm 29, even 1% makes a huge difference. And then you'll have to start thinking, where can I automate? Where can I bring in, reduce the wage cost by actually knocking off high cost people and bringing low cost people there. There are various ways. There's a very, huge plan there. What organizations do. Like, for example, I'll tell you, Yogesh is there. Cognizant. I was sitting with a Cognizant business head. Typically, year on year, what they do, the client does not actually pay them more when it is for renewal. So what happens? They ensure that the high cost heads are then sent to other projects which are affordable, and they will actually then have shadowing and then ensure that the people successors or in the talent pipeline, people with the lower cost are able to do those jobs. That's how they are able to manage. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult. Your wage cost keeps going on and business cannot afford. Your ECR ratio becomes very high. So that is something which is very, very important when you're doing budgeting. Okay. Now, having said that, so if you have 20, 22, 18% hypothetically, then I will say, hey, I would like to be at a 22% percent of the, because so you can take a call, of course, through discussion, saying maybe my ECR ratio, I will keep it at 22%. Since I'm a startup, I might need people who will cost more. So that's how you calculate your wage cost in two ways. One is getting your data from the past and starting from there. Or if you don't have data, then you can take a ballpark percentage figure based on your comparator companies with whom you want to compete. Now, having said that, what do you do next? Say, for example, your compensation wage cost last year was 200 billion. Okay. Now, as Adil also mentioned, this year, our business is going to increase and we have forecasted that it will go up by 25%. So when your business, you are increasing it by 25%, what does that mean? That means that you are going to actually then have more people. Huh? You will recruit more people will come on board. So obviously your compensation budget will increase by that much percentage. So I made it as 250 because 25%, okay, 250. So I hope it's clear how I arrived at 250. Is it clear?
That is clear, but ma'am, how did you
Yeah.
arrive to 25%? Was it because of the ECR that you considered?
No. 200 is my last year's budget figure. What I actually spent, 25% I get from the business or business says, hey, I'm going to increase my revenue this year. The target forecasted is 25%. So obviously, 25% of it
Yeah.
has to go into the compensation. Got it? Everybody very clear? Okay. Now, having said, budgeting is always forecasting, no? Now I have to think of the various issues I need to consider. For example, important ones like regulatory compliance. This year, not this year, you know that because of the wage code, the PF, etc., etc. So I might have to increase about 10 million. I'll put a ballpark figure depending on my payroll. Then again, I will say, hey, I need to pay a little more for the new employees to increase their competitiveness. So I'm putting a figure. How much? 20 million. Again, I have some variable plans. So you are looking at everything, all the items. You are looking at variable plans and say, hey, I need to have, I'm not able to attract people. So I need to have a new variable plan. So I'm putting some amount. Again, in this, in my levels, a supervisory staff, I'm not able to get because the supply demand is becoming the demand for them is becoming very high. Maybe I need to change some practices and give them some training, etc., to attract them. So I'm putting one figure. So those are ballpark line items. Then coming to a regular items like what this year I have to give performance hike. So again, an annual hike. Then maybe there is not much of an internal equity, some grade shift. So I'm looking at everything, all the line items. Then external equity, market corrections, inflation, etc. So by adding certain percentages, then I'm totaling this all those things, and they come up to 256. But my budgeted figure is how much? 250. So what will I do now? Or what should I do? Guys, tell me. Quick yard. Huh?
We'll have to make
Will the
adjustments.
CEO allow? Your budget is 255. You are showing me 256. Huh? What should I do? Again, sit through, go and make again, iterate everything.
Ma'am, we can make changes in competitive.
You're going to make changes. So let us make changes. Okay. Now, can I make changes in regulatory compliance? Very difficult because
no, ma'am.
PF,
No,
everything,
ma'am.
it will become very.
We can't
Maybe
do.
I can say 1 million. I can make some because 6 million I'm exceeding. So maybe 1 million here, right? Maybe
Yes.
1 million here again. Huh? 2 million. So how much less can I do? So you need to take the big items, big tickets and say, can I do that there? So likewise, maybe, typically hike, I don't want to touch because it becomes difficult for me to attract. But maybe I can because this CEO, they normally haggle the 1 million here. So likewise, I
Yes.
need to make changes and if possible, and then bring it to 250 or at best 251 so that again I can stretch with the CEO and ask him, some kind of a negotiation. But having said that, you know what CEO will say then? Okay, guys, huh? Yet we are giving this hike, we are giving this, but what are you going to do to ensure that our percentage of profits remain the same? So therefore, the businesses will have to start looking at whether they will bring in automation, whether they will reduce their, lower to reduce their wage costs through some interventions, or they will actually then get their high cost heads delegated somewhere and bring in low cost heads to replace them. So all these changes take place because what happens if you are keeping on increasing the wage cost year on year because of hike, etc., annual hike every year, then your profits will diminish. So that's how there's a balance between, bringing about changes in the workforce so that you are able to balance. In today's times, what is happening? You are bringing in more automation wherever required. If possible, you will bring in AI now to see how best we can actually reduce a lot of jobs. Already bots are being used, as you know. No, that receptionist and all is gone. So everywhere bot is being used. So much of automation, and I think in the times to come we will see much more technology being involved in everything. And one best situation was what is this COVID. which happened for HR, that it forced us. HR always wanted to be, more technology driven, more automated. But I think after the COVID, they were forced to get into more of automation and technology. If you have now seen, everything is done, even onboarding, orientation, whatnot, everything, performance management, everything is being done automated. So, well, guys, I want to show you the line items where you can actually look at. Where is it? Yeah, I think it is here. Mhm. See, for existing jobs, I mean, like, I'm just showing the details of the line items, which we have already talked about in terms of when you are doing percentage of salary increment line items. Then again, job wise, if you want to increase, then again, roles you want to really knock off some roles, restructuring, etc. So salaries, how much of salaries you want to increase it. So these are some of the line items where you can see midterm salaries, variable payouts, soft skill, how much, and then you total up, and then you look at your budget and whether it fits into, and you keep making one or two iterations. This is how you make things done. Okay.